Thanks for tuning in. My name is Jesus Sanchez Rivera, and today I'll be showcasing my IT Capstone project. It is a database that I designed using Python and SQL. I'll be going over the early stages, how the program was developed, the planning and long-term outlining for how the project should be created, the development phase, and my experiences overall in designing this tool. The project began as an idea when I was talking with my coworker over at my internship and designing a tool that's able to store, manage, modify documents that are used to line out steps and procedures for the maintenance of electrical utility lines. I began looking over different programming languages or platforms to create this database. I initially considered using Microsoft Word or Excel because I have plenty of experience designing similar scripts and tools using Visual Basic. But I saw this as an opportunity to be able to have experience with a language that I haven't had much testing with. During college, I've had a lot of experience using C, C++, JavaScript, and Java, but recently I learned Python, and considering how popular it is, I thought this would be a perfect idea to create a database using Python and Microsoft Word. Then I began to look at ways to make a database out of storing all of these documents, and since the company already uses SQL, I decided to use that paired with Python to create the project. And with that in mind, I decided to use HTML to design a web tool that can be accessed from any device. So I began work on the project's code using Python, SQL, and HTML, and I already had in mind the long-term scope and development of the project. During the development phase, I still had frequent meetings with my coworker to make sure that any of the features that I was adding were in line with his expectations. And I realized this step is very important in designing any type of tool that is going to be used by a lot of different users. Then the majority of the time was spent debugging and testing the code, and for any project like this, when something can go wrong, it will go wrong. But fortunately for me, I still somehow managed to have fun staring at the same line of code, wondering why is it not running now, only to change one letter somewhere else completely random, and the program is working now. That's just part of the experience, it seems. During the development, I was thinking of useful features to start implementing and thinking forward of, such as logging the different activities from users, creating a separate table in the SQL database to store the users and passwords, and quality check any data that's being entered into the database. Designing tools this way helps for any future additions to be added long-term during the program's whole lifetime cycle, with ideas you may have not thought of at that time, but later on can be suggested. And it's important for any similar tool to keep in mind any safety and risks involved with managing a database that you may handle by checking the users that log in, logging their activity, checking the data before it's entered into the database, and avoiding any malicious code through code injecting. And now I'd like to show the program's intended use case. So now we've swapped over to the program where we can witness it in its full glory. When I execute the program to run and I go to the address, it's starting to read users trying to reach the site. So we'll go ahead and try and log in into one of these accounts, and I'll try and log in without a password field. And this is one of the parts of quality checking any data entry field. So the program wouldn't let you go in without the correct username or password. So we'll go ahead and sign in as this user. And all these users are stored in a separate table in the same database, which is useful for keeping track of who is logging in and assigning administrator privileges. So we'll go ahead and put in the user's password. And from here, we can go and create a new document, which are called switch orders. We'll fill in the fields. We'll try and leave the unit empty. And let's say this is for a super fun video. We'll go ahead and leave the active field empty. And when we create the order, another quality check is to make sure there's no empty data that's been submitted into the database. You don't want to have a whole bunch of junk stuff inside of the database. Keep the junk clean and away from the database. So we'll go ahead and fill in the information that was missing. Let's give this a random name. And we'll say this is creating a super fun video. We'll leave it as inactive and we'll go ahead and create. And at the bottom, it assigned a unique ID for this order, which is helpful for keeping track of hundreds of different entries in the database. So we'll go ahead and find the order that we just inserted. There are already other entries in the database, and at the bottom here, this is the order that we just created. And the empty fields in the middle are useful for another user to come in and approve the order to go ahead and be executed. So if we go and log off to use a different user, and we search for the order that we just entered, let's say we want to try and modify our own order. If we try and select it, modify, let's give it this day, an hour later, we can set it to active. And you cannot approve your own order. So more data quality checking in order. We'll go ahead and switch to a different user so that we can make changes to that order. We can find the order here, we can select it. And now we'll go ahead and input the data again, and we'll set it to active. We'll make change orders, and it's brought us back to this page. And now in the middle section, it's showing up that the order has been modified by someone else and it's set to active now. And now if we go ahead and log off, the whole time the program is running, the program has been creating a log of the different users that have been making changes and modifications to the database. And that concludes the presentation, and I am also sad that I couldn't stay longer. Thank you for your attention. Here are links that I use for the images posted in the project, and have a great day.